Zhao Wei calls Wang Yibo a coward. Xiao Zhan defends him like never before. It began with one comment. One moment. One piercing sentence during a live panel that should have been about film direction. Instead, the name on Zhao Wei's lips wasn't even part of the original conversation. Sometimes, she said, pausing as if the weight of the moment needed space, some stars run from responsibility like cowards. Some hide behind silence, behind their image, instead of standing for the people they claim to love. The crowd went quiet. The camera panned to her face, steady and poised, but the internet exploded within seconds. Because Zhao Wei didn't mention a name. But she didn't need to. The world knew who she meant. Wang Yibo. And somewhere backstage, far away from that interview hall, Xiao Zhan was watching. Attention years in the making. 4 years, fans had speculated about the quiet rift between the older generation of actors and the newer stars dominating fan culture and social media. Zhao Wei, a celebrated actress, director, and producer, had rarely minced words when discussing what she called the performative vulnerability of modern celebrities. But her history with Wang Yibo was uniquely layered. There had been a past misunderstanding, one few talked about openly. A project years ago that fell apart. A miscommunication that led to a public delay, a reschedule, and rumors that Wang Yibo had walked out last minute due to personal stress. At the time, he had stayed silent. Letting the press spin its tale. Letting the blame fall like ash at his feet. Now, after everything. After the collapse. After the hospital. After the whispered stories of ICU rooms and Xiao Zhan breaking down during filming. Zhao Wei's words cut like a blade reopening a scar. And Xiao Zhan was done being silent. The interview that shook the industry. It happened on the same night. Xiao Zhan wasn't scheduled to do any press. He had just wrapped a scene and was heading out the studio gates when a reporter caught him. The question came fast. The clip of Zhao Wei had gone viral. Everyone wanted a reaction. He could have walked past. He could have smiled politely. But he didn't. Instead, he stopped. Looked straight into the lens. And said, "Call him a coward again and see how far that gets you." The internet froze. His voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. But the chill in it. The weight of that single sentence. Carried years of pain and anger. He continued. "You don't know what that man has survived. What he gave up. What he hid from the world just to protect people who never deserved it. You think staying silent makes someone weak? No. It takes more strength to carry the weight of your own collapse without screaming for help than it does to stand on a stage and point fingers." By now, cameras were everywhere. His manager tried to intervene. But Xiao Zhan wouldn't stop. Wang Yibo was fighting battles you'll never understand. "You call him a coward? I call him the strongest person I know." And then he walked away. No PR spin. No apology. Just the truth. Fans in chaos, tears, trends, and team divides. Within an hour, hashtags trended in every direction. #protect Wang Yibo. #Xiao Zhan defends Yibo. #Jiawei apologize. Clips of Xiao Zhan's response went viral. Not only because of his words, but because of the rawness in his eyes. He didn't speak like a colleague defending another. He spoke like someone who had been there, held Wang Yibo's hand in the silence of a hospital room, heard his whispered regrets, and watched him fall apart without anyone knowing. Comments flooded in. From fans. From former co-stars. From industry insiders who, for years, had stayed silent about the stigma surrounding mental health and breakdowns in entertainment. Some supported Zhao Wei, calling her bold for calling out the passive image management. Others condemned her, accusing her of dragging someone who had already been through more than the public could comprehend. But one thing was clear. Wang Yibo was no longer fighting alone. Backstage reactions, unseen moments that changed everything. Sources confirmed that Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo spoke privately that night. No one knows exactly what was said. But one production assistant, overhearing fragments from outside the trailer, heard one sentence loud and clear. "You don't owe them your silence anymore." It wasn't just about the insult. It was about everything leading up to it. The months of criticism. The projects dropped due to health concerns. The hospital stays hidden behind exhaustion press releases. The love story that was never allowed to breathe freely. Everyone had speculated. Everyone had seen the distance growing. Even after their quiet reconciliation following Wang Yibo's second collapse. Even after Xiao Zhan begged doctors not to let him die angry. Now it was different. Now, the world wasn't just watching a feud. It was watching two men refuse to be torn apart again. Industry responds, calls for reform and compassion. By the next morning, major agencies and film directors had released quiet statements about the pressures artists face. Mental health advocates used the moment to highlight how judgment and silence could destroy people. One campaign even started with Wang Yibo's name, not for scandal, but for healing. #Let Them Heal trended for 12 hours. It wasn't just about celebrity anymore. It was about the cost of silence. And Xiao Zhan's decision to speak had cracked something wide open. Several co-stars who had once avoided comment began to share their own stories. About stars who had cried between takes. Collapsed in dressing rooms. Smiled for cameras with pain in their chest and fear in their throats. Zhao Wei responds, a shift in tone. A day later, Zhao Wei posted a statement. Not an apology. But something close. She acknowledged that her words may have caused personal hurt and insisted her criticism was aimed at an industry culture, not a specific person. But by then, the moment had passed. The world had chosen a side. And it wasn't hers. The truth was simple. You could call someone a coward on stage. But when their story included hospital rooms, panic attacks, public humiliation, and years of whispered suffering, that label wouldn't stick. Not when someone like Xiao Zhan stepped up to burn it down. In private, what happened between them? Later that week, an image leaked online. A private rooftop moment. Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan. No stylists. No cameras. Just them. Sitting on the edge of a rooftop under late evening skies. Their faces turned away from the camera. But their hands were visible. Clasped tightly. Like anchors in a storm. It was reposted over 1 million times. Some said it was staged. Most knew it wasn't. That silence. That hand. That moment. It said everything. He wasn't supposed to hear that. Xiao Zhan's private moment with Wang Yibo leaks, internet in meltdown. The rooftop photo should have been the end of the conversation, but somehow, it only ignited a new fire. Because hours after Xiao Zhan's interview and Zhao Wei's carefully measured backtrack, the world wasn't focused on her anymore. It was fixated on what the camera had captured from the shadows, a quiet moment between two men no longer trying to pretend, a moment that wasn't meant for the public. But that wasn't the real explosion. The real explosion came 12 hours later. When a voice recording surfaced online. Not staged. Not scripted. Not polished. Just raw audio. A whispered conversation between Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo. And the words that broke the internet. You still think you're not worth defending. But you are. You were always worth it. I heard what she said. I wasn't supposed to, was I? It was the crack in the armor fans never expected to hear. Behind closed doors, the moment that changed everything. Sources close to the crew of Xiao Zhan's latest set confirmed what fans had feared: the audio had been captured during a late-night shoot. Both men had arrived unannounced. Neither was scheduled to film that night. They were simply there. Together. Wang Yibo had come to return a small gift, a keychain from years ago, something Xiao Zhan had left behind in a hospital room he never returned to. But what should have been a 5-minute drop-off turned into a 2-hour conversation. And someone had recorded it. Intentionally. Or accidentally. No one knew for sure. But the world heard it all. You shouldn't have gone on camera like that. Wang Yibo's voice trembled, low, broken in places. You didn't need to fight for me. Xiao Zhan didn't hesitate. You think I didn't want to? After everything you've been through? You stayed silent when you were falling apart. I won't stay silent now. It was as if years of tension spilled out in one breath. Fans dissected every second of that audio. Some wept, others speculated, theories ran wild, but the truth behind the words was clear. This wasn't just a defense. It was a confession. He waited too long. Fans debate timing, love, and loyalty. The audio sparked a division online unlike anything the fandom had seen before, not because they questioned Xiao Zhan's loyalty but because of the timing. Where was this fire 2 years ago? When Wang Yibo collapsed during rehearsal? When their rumored relationship was buried under NDAs, paparazzi threats, and public backlash? When Xiao Zhan was forced to smile on red carpets while Wang Yibo was locked in a psychiatric facility, trying to remember how to breathe? Some fans were thankful. Others were furious. One post went viral. A fan wrote, "He defended him now, but he left him when it mattered most." The comment hit a nerve. Because deep down, everyone knew there was more to the story. The secret that never stayed hidden. By noon the next day, another leak. This time, a document. Stamped and dated. An email chain between an agency and their joint management from over a year ago. It showed what many suspected. That Xiao Zhan had tried to walk away from his contract months earlier. That his team had been warned that staying close to Wang Yibo would damage his career. That meetings had been held behind closed doors to separate their image. To dissolve joint projects. To rewrite a friendship into a professional one-time collaboration. And worst of all, that both men had agreed to it. Reluctantly. Painfully. Because they had no choice. Fans who had once doubted the separation now understood the heartbreak wasn't a story. It was reality. Forced. Engineered. Executed by people who never knew what those two meant to each other. "I was never an obligation," Yibo speaks at last. "It took 2 days. But then, Wang Yibo broke his silence. Not through a press conference. Not on a talk show. But during a live fan event that was supposed to be about a charity initiative. Halfway through the event, in front of a modest audience, he paused and said, 'I didn't expect him to defend me. But he did. And for once, I want to say this out loud, I was never someone who needed to be rescued. But I was someone who needed to be believed in.'" The crowd went silent. Then erupted. He continued. Voice calm but eyes visibly glossy. "I didn't collapse because I was weak. I collapsed because I was tired of pretending. Of hiding. Of being called difficult when all I ever wanted was peace. And then,